Hi everyone and welcome back to Midwest Running. Today we're diving into a review of the Rabbit Dream Chaser and a brief comparison of kind of the original and the new 2.0 version of it. A little bit of a disclosure here, I am a member of the Rad Rabbit crew for the 2025-2026 year. And the Dream Chaser 1.0 that I compare was actually sent to me as part of this, whereas for version 2.0 I did pay full price with my own money. Also, part of my disclosure here is Rabbit has not seen any of this review, has no control over the content of it. These are just really my thoughts and opinions based on my experiences so far. So, a little bit about the shoe here. This is the 2.0 model here, and then I'm going to show you the 1.0 underneath it. So, you can kind of see the two look extraordinarily similar, especially in this colorway. So, this is a shoe that Rabbit released to bring, quote, fresh energy to your everyday runs. The design is very minimal, especially when you look at it in this white colorway here. Material itself actually feels quite premium though, and the overall sensation is built to be a pretty durable daily trainer. The upper itself is made of a 100% recycled polyester. The design compared to the original is much lighter feeling, has much more pronounced ventilation, as you can kind of see. Again, just kind of comparison, we'll detail it here with the 2.0 versus the 1.0. You can see just how much more ventilation there is on it. Material itself is less stretchy on version 2, as well as has just a really good feel to it. It's maybe a little less soft than the first version of it, but really on foot doesn't have much of a difference. Both models are using the same midsole and outsole. Note that the midsole here is what they call their flow state foam. It is a ETPU foam. They claim it's more eco-friendly than other foams. It shows excellent durability so far, if I'm being honest. Really the standout feature on this shoe is the insole here, which is this Blue Mega insole, which is a thick insole itself. It is an ETPU foam as well. It's really just designed to be more long-lasting. They say over 1,000 miles in some of the marketing I've seen. And it does create a really nice, comfortable underfoot experience. It has a nice premium kind of upper layer to it. It feels great under the foot. The outsole, you can see, has a very large amount of rubber. Kind of on the outer section here is a blown rubber with a decent amount of exposed foam through the middle and kind of this nice little extra pad of cushion underneath your forefoot there. And then underneath the arches, hard to see here, but underneath the arches here, you have this small little strip of carbon fiber that is covered with rubber here. And that's what they call their Carbon Tracks product, which they claim in their marketing, quote, centers your ride. In my US men's size 10.5, the version 2.0 comes in at 10.7 ounces or 303 grams. The stack height, including the 5mm insole, is 37 millimeters total with a 5mm drop, putting us at 32 in the front. The fit itself is a little bit on the snug side, especially through the midfoot, kind of right here where it kind of comes together here, and then even into the toe box. I will say that version 2 is a little less snug than version 1. And then the toe box itself, kind of that roof of the toe box here, tends to have a little bit more room, a little bit more, less kind of pinching on the toes. It was not uncomfortable with the first version, but definitely the second version gives you a little extra room there. In terms of comfort, the initial step in, I think, shows that the material choices are very much in line with kind of Rabbit's overall feel. They tend to do these very soft, gentle, very comfortable materials, and this really is no difference there. The one thing, and I kind of touched on it before, is that version 2 here, as well as version 1, tends to have a bit of discomfort, a little bit of pressure that some people can get kind of along the lateral arch, kind of right here where the kind of as it transitions over into the toe box itself. I've heard this from multiple people. I have noted that it is a little bit better on version 2 than version 1, and when I first laced it up, I loosened all the way down to the bottom, and then just was very deliberate with how I tightened each layer. And I found that by doing that, I was able to alleviate a lot of that pressure, a lot of that discomfort. That being said, I will say I also, after trying to run in the first model of it right out of the box, then decided that I was going to do a couple days of just comfortable, just daily wear. And by doing so, I felt that the insole kind of softened up a little bit and really helped alleviate a lot of that extra little pressure and support that I was feeling there. Really, I think that that's what kind of leads to a lot of that, is just overall the midfoot being a little bit on the snugger side, and then the midsole, or excuse me, the insole being a little bit on the thicker side, which once it settles into your foot shape seems to be a little bit better. But I do know some people are continuing to have issues despite putting a decent number of miles and hours and wear into it. Other than that snugness that I mentioned, really the lockdown of the shoe is actually really quite good. There's no heel lift. The heel itself has a little bit of that kind of backward curve, kind of that elf kind of curve that you're seeing on other brands like Hoka's been doing and a few others. The counter is relatively stiff. And inside here, there are a couple nice little pads of pillowy kind of support there as well to kind of help keep your heel and ankle nicely locked in. The tongue is gusseted. That gives it a nice little extra kind of wrap around your foot. The only way I can describe the ride of it is soft. I will say that the ground field is quite dampened by this foam. It does tend to prefer easier paces in general. If you do a little bit of a pickup here and there, it's probably not too bad, but definitely like for your easy days, definitely this is where this shoe kind of shines. I really wouldn't take it on a spicy run, if you know what I'm saying. The carbon tracks, while they do talk about, in the marketing, how it kind of centers the ride a little bit, what I will say about it is it does give a little bit of stability. You kind of feel that centering. You do feel that as you kind of transition from kind of heel to toe. If you're more of a heel striker, I think you'll definitely feel it more than myself being a little bit more of a midfoot to forefoot striker. That being said, it doesn't seem to be severely constricting or controlling of your gait, so it's nice and easy on the feet there. The rubber has a very good amount of coverage, as I mentioned. The traction is quite good, actually. Even on some wet pavement, paint lines, those kinds of things, really did not feel any slip whatsoever. I think that's going to be very helpful. And then, again, not the most versatile shoe. I think this is really designed mostly for kind of your weekday easy runs, kind of the quote unquote junk miles that some people refer to. I think that this really fits in quite well there. A couple pros to this shoe, I think, are that the on-foot comfort, once you kind of get it broken in, is quite good. I think this shoe just fits like a glove in a very positive way. The breathability on version 2 here is significantly improved. And then the durability seems to be quite high, seeing kind of what other people have been able to get out of this shoe so far. I feel confident that this is a shoe that's designed to last. The cons, though, again, I mentioned that lateral arch pain. I know a lot of people who've had issues with that when they've tried this shoe. That doesn't seem to go away for some. And then also just kind of in general, the midsole itself does feel a little bit spongy. As I said, it's soft. It's not the most responsive. And really, it's hard to pick up the pace for any sustained amount of time. But, for simple things like some strides or, a minute or two, little fartlet kind of things, that's not too bad. But once you get really trying to pick up the pace, I think that that's one of the areas where this shoe tends to have some limitation. So who would I recommend this shoe for? First of all, I would say if you have a narrower foot, definitely a little bit better option than people with wider feet. Really, because of how that midsole is designed, I don't think you're going to have a good time getting any kind of lockdown in it if you have a wider foot. If you're racking up a ton of miles, this is actually a pretty good shoe for that. I think this is a shoe you can easily come back to day in and day out for, again, kind of those middle distance, like I should say, for those, 6 to 10 mile kind of runs in the middle of the week. If also, though, I think if you're somebody who just wants a single pair of shoes, you're kind of a hobby jogger. You're not going out and racking up miles and miles and miles, but you go out every couple days and do 3 to 5 miles. Maybe occasionally do like a 5K, 10K kind of deal. This is actually a pretty decent shoe, I think, for you in that regard, as long as you're not really trying to push it for any kind of workouts, tempo, any of those kinds of paces. Now, price of the shoe, it is $160. It is more expensive than a lot of other daily trainers that I would compare it to. I think a lot of that really does come down to kind of the economies of scale. Rabbit itself is not a major brand, major player in the shoe space, obviously. So with that in mind, I think that puts it right around a reasonable price point for the shoe when you have to consider the materials cost and overall production of it compared to, say, like an Adidas or Nike, something that's going to have just significantly larger volume. In terms of the actual shoe itself, a couple of shoes I actually find similar to it. One, it does have this kind of stable, neutral kind of feel to it. As I said, that those carbon tracks there just kind of help keep that midfoot in line when you're kind of transitioning through your stride, as well as this very gentle rocker, I think is nice to have. It just kind of helps keep the shoe moving forward. The two that I really almost immediately think of, one was actually the Adidas Supernova Rise 2. It's kind of a similar use case. Where I find these two shoes are similar is it does have a little bit more of a premium foam to it. And with that in mind, it gives you a little bit just more quality, a little bit more dampening of the underfoot. The Adidas uses these longitudinal strips of like a higher density foam to give you a little bit more stability through the through your foot strike. Whereas this one, again, just has those couple of carbon pieces. And then another one I think of actually is the Diadora Nuclea 2. Also kind of a similar daily trainer, mileage trainer, with very gentle stability. It's a little bit more traditional in using kind of a very mild kind of guide rail kind of idea, but it's not as intrusive as some of the other models you've seen historically. But very similar kind of dampening underfoot, very nice gentle stability. It doesn't really get too much in the way. Neither of these shoes, and none of these shoes are too much of like a trampoline under your foot. You're not getting a lot of strong return. You're getting just a very nice dampened running feel. Now, to compare it, so version 1, when it came out about a year ago, a lot of people had a lot of complaints because the material itself on version 1 is a thicker kind of knit material. It's still a similar fabric. And then the biggest thing is what they try to do is it kind of uses like almost like checkerboard kind of pattern where it's thinner in a lot of spaces here to kind of create some more breathability. Now I find that actually tends to have been a little bit less effective. On foot, I feel like the version 1, kind of the upper itself feels a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more premium, but that decreased breathability, especially when you're running, if it's warm out at all, that really tends to kind of hold it back. Also, the other thing is the difference in weight. So from version 1 to version 2, version 1 in my size 10.5 is 11.5 ounces or 326 grams. Whereas I said version 2 came in at 10.7 ounces or 303 grams. So that's not an insignificant amount. So especially when you're starting to put those miles in, it is noticeable, the weight improvement there. And then the other thing is just that breathability aspect, that all these just more deliberately kind of cut holes in the design, you get a lot more breathability. I felt like my feet were a lot less swampy in this shoe, especially when it's been warm and hot like it has been. So in summary, I think the Rabbit Dream Chaser 2.0, it's a decent daily trainer. It has great breathability, blended with some durability. It does have a little bit of a tendency towards stability, but again, it is not a stability shoe directly. But if you're somebody who tends to need a little bit of that stability, I think this is a really nice little option for you. Really, I think if you're somebody who likes Rabbit's clothing line, this is a really nice companion piece to it. For others, though, I really would recommend maybe considering something from the more mainstream brands, your Asics, your Hoka, your Adidas. I think that those you're going to get a very similar shoe at a better price and maybe a little bit better performance overall. Now, that being said, this is really just a very soft experience. It's very nice. It's very much in line with what Rabbit does. So if you're familiar with the kind of the feel of Rabbit's clothing, again, this shoe really just kind of lines up exactly with everything you're used to there. Thank you. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you've had any experience with either of these shoes, comment below. Please like and subscribe this video, and I hope to see you again for the next one.